Hi, everyone, and I'm very, very happy to be joined by the director and writer of one of my absolute favorite short films of just basically, it's one of my favorite ever. Hi, hi, Ryan.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Tell us a little about yourself and how you got started in this industry with filmmaking.
Well, I was always making movies with toys as a kid, and I would remember the Indiglo stopwatches, the
Mhm.
glow in the dark ones? Well, I would hit the timer on it, and I would use like Fisher Price giant kitchen sets as layers for bad guys and like create narratives with all my toys. And then I would stop the watch and 3 hours would pass and I would sit and write down those stories. And my mom still has a box of all those written stories. And then my parents got a high 8 video camera. Then I got a digital 8 video camera. So I was always making things as a kid. And then in high school and learned how to edit first on just the analog editing thing when you would do Firewire into USB. It was called like Movie Magic, something like that. And then into Premiere and Final Cut 7, back to Premiere. But yeah, I've always been making things. Then I went to art school and did what all art school students do, film themselves doing video diaries and smearing shit on the wall. So I was doing all weird, things there. I did this really early in the YouTube days. I did a Manson documentary before Manson was cool again with Once
Yeah.
Upon a Time in Hollywood. I read Helter Skelter. I thought that theory was kind of bullshit from the prosecuting attorney. It was well written and a great narrative. But then I read this Beach Boys book. I was really into Pet Sounds and Smiley Smile, and there was a chapter on Charlie and how the drummer Dennis Wilson invited him into his home, and Charlie was this musician, and he learned how to play from all these old folk guys, like from the Ma Barker gang in prison, and the whole music motive to the murders. So I actually didn't do any interviews for this doc. I just bought VHS tapes off collectors on eBay and transferred them to DB and made this 80-minute documentary, put it out on YouTube in like 2007. And a lot of people blasted me about it who, the Beach Boys estate, but then met a lot of very interesting people, even associated with the family. I had calls from prison with Charles Manson. So then when I came out to LA, um, there were a couple of producers who were very interested in this subject matter that I got to meet and just like talk to on that level rather than a can you help me level, but on a common interest. I came out here, I interned for a bunch of production companies, Appian Way, DiCaprio's production company. I got Salad for his executives, so I learned a lot there. Like literary management companies. I spent so much time writing features with my best friend from Toronto. I'm from Canada, by the way. Hello, everyone from Canada. Uh, and spent a lot of time writing on spec but not making anything. And yeah, it was good experience going into meetings and having scripts optioned and then 2 years later nothing happening and it reverting back to us, or people are like, we love your script but we want you to rewrite it from page one, and then coming up with a pitch in a room. And then when we left we're like, what the fuck are we gonna do? Like, this isn't the movie anymore. And then just like sitting sweaty with my best friend war room style, in our underwear in a Hollywood apartment, writing and beating each other up and eating gorp, which is a mix of refried beans, rice, and canned tomatoes, which is actually really good. It's
It is actually good.
yeah, yeah. You've
Good.
had gorp.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, and then
Writer
just
food.
yeah.
Writer
It-
for
yeah. And then, sorry for this long answer. I suddenly got hyper. And so then, after playing the writing game, I'm like, I gotta fucking make something. This is like 2014, and then I've been making one or two short films ever since, and doing the festival thing, mostly in the genre world, horror, dark comedy. Um, and now I'm almost done writing the feature. Two short films ago, I won this $50,000 first feature grant where I was paired with a writer, but that kind of fell through. We just couldn't align. We had an idea, but with the script, we couldn't align. It just didn't work out. So, now I'm just writing something that I could make by myself.
Can you watch the Manson documentary anywhere? Is it available to watch?
Oh yeah. It's the cool thing about it is if YouTube takes it down, people re-upload it. I don't even have to do anything. There's like bootleg versions of it. Yeah, it's called Cease to Exist. Cease to Exist was a song Charles Manson wrote, and he gifted it to the Beach Boys. And this was when Brian kind of took a back seat in 1969, and they released the song as Never Learn Not to Love. They changed the lyrics, they changed the title, they didn't credit Charlie, and it's on their 2020 album. And Charlie was pissed off. He's like, you changed the words, man. You never change the words. Words are like God, man. Everything I do is brand new. Anyways, like, it's my Charlie rant. But talking to him a couple of years before his death, he seemed to be at peace with Wilson and called him a good guy. But Wilson and the producer Terry Melcher did Paul Revere and the Raiders, the Byrds. Manson, he invited Manson to go record at Brother Records Studios, the Beach Boys recording studio. And Charlie, there's these tapes, bootleg tapes that exist, and it's evidence that Charlie didn't have the discipline to be recorded in a studio. He's like, and you hear the girl laughing behind him, like, in between takes, and he has all these false starts, and he's like, oh, I don't feel comfortable with these microphones in my face, these giant phallic objects. And you see Charlie like pretty vulnerable. So then they're like, Charlie's like, you got to come out to Spawn Ranch. We'll go by the river over there. And that's where you could see me play, because he was good at the whole live experience. And he just didn't have the discipline to be recorded because, as now we know, the house that Sharon Tate, and Roman Polanski lived in, Mila, my dog's jumping up on me, wanting love. But that house once was rented by Terry Melcher. I guess that's in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood when they show Manson, he's looking for Melcher, and that's the guy who he prevailed upon to produce his music. And so those weren't necessarily seen as they originally were, as a blind random murder. You could connect it to the music motive. And one of the most interesting people that I met through making this doc was this guy, Rudy Altobelli. And he was the original owner of the Cielo Drive property. And now, at the time, 2008, he was living around the corner from me in a retirement home in Hollywood, and all alone with his cat. And this guy was a war hero. He was a war hero, and he was a manager for Henry Fonda post Once Upon a Time in the West era of his career. And now here he was, just all this history behind him. So I would go hang out with him and bring him food because he was like 80, 85. And the dude that introduced me was Tom O'Neill, the guy that wrote the new Chaos Charles Manson book, like that took him 20 years to write. And there was a screening at my friend's house who first was so pissed that I used his footage because he was the Beach Boys photographer, videographer in a certain period and Dennis's best friend. And he had a screening of my movie at his house in 2007. And he's like, and then Tom O'Neill, who knows everything about Manson, comes in and he brings this frail old man, and it's Rudy Altobelli, the guy who owned the property. So it was super uncomfortable showing like images from death scenes. There's a little part where the murders happen in my movie and him watching it. I actually felt really bad. But I started hanging out with this guy, and I'll shut up in a sec. I'll tell you a hilarious anecdote. This is the worst thing to tell someone on a first date, and I have done it. When the Manson thing came up. So I was at Rudy Altobelli's house, and sometimes him and I would just like smoke pot and hang out. And he was a gay man, and he brought me this giant bong that was a big dick. And he's like, let's smoke this one here. That's how he would talk, kind of that old school kind of Hollywood voice of the, you know, the guys, the Barkers and stuff, the penny peep shows and the old Hollywood days. So he's like, smoke it from here. And I'm like, and he's like, you know, a lot of famous mouths have been on this. And it's true, because he used to live at Jack Nicholson's guest house until Nicholson kicked his dog. And now, and he lost all of this money, this guy. And he's like, you know why there's a One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest poster outside my door? Because Jack is reminding me that he's paying my rent. So just random these stories.
Did you actually get to talk to Manson? Like, what was that like?
Those are online. So we know Manson died, what, a year or two ago?
Yeah.
A couple of years before that, I had a dream that I filmed him at Corcoran Prison playing guitar. So just as an archive, you know, I'm a Jew. I don't like people with swastikas in their forehead, or murderers, or people that have manipulated people. But like, we're all, a lot of us, fascinated with these flawed characters. And I wanted to record him playing music as a document. So I wrote him, and I left my phone number. And I thought, oh, I'm never going to hear from this guy. Or if I'm lucky, I'll get a written letter back with one of his spider illustrations or something. And he called me. And I didn't know, when someone calls you from prison, you have to have money deposited into an account. And he called me, and it said, oh, you need money in this account. And it hung up. And I was like, ah, he's never going to call me. I missed it. And I put money in the account. A few weeks later, he calls me, and I'm like, and I'm like, okay, Manson's calling me. What do I do? How do I be? I know that he's so defensive, and rightfully so. Like, everyone is just going straight after him with the murders and stuff. I didn't want to take that angle. So I need to be friendly with him. I need to pretend like everything, he's just a nice, happy, pappy guy. And so what makes these calls so funny is I'm like, hey, how are you? He called me on Thanksgiving, in the middle of a Thanksgiving dinner. I'm like, are you having a good Thanksgiving? And it's like that, my tone. And he was into it. It was if I went a certain way, I could tell when he was defensive. I just tried to steer him away from that. But I learned more about his music and where he learned to play. But he said, I don't want to be bought and sold, man. Why do you want to record me? The music's for God. And he's like, I make music everywhere. So he didn't want to be recorded, but he wanted to talk to me. And apparently he knew me and saw my documentary. He's like, Oxenberg, I know you. So it was kind of scary, but also funny. And just let the guy ramble a bit. So I have 3 recorded calls online. If you Google Charles Manson called me on Thanksgiving or Charles Manson called me from prison, they're funny. And you know, I wish I was a little sharper during them. I wish there were certain questions I could have asked or tried to steer him a bit more, but those were the opportunities I had, and that's how they played out. And some people find them really funny.
Was he having a nice Thanksgiving?
He didn't know what day it was.
Yeah, that's really gnarly. I'm definitely going to check them. I have to ask you now about the new Not Normal Trilogy Supercut. When I was talking to Tim from Panic Fest, and he just randomly mentioned it, and I saw it like in the movie list, and I thought, yeah, I'm gonna watch that. And then he's like, you have to watch it. And then I watched it, and I sat for like, I don't know, 10, maybe 15 minutes, and I was just like, what the fuck did I just watch? It was amazing.
Thank
How did how did this happen? Why? It's amazing, but how? I have so many questions. How and why?
I'll tell you, but what's your favorite part?
I think the ending, and I also think when you're on the date and you have the mask on and you're eating the food.
That's pretty much how dating was for me during quarantine.
it's it's literally like it should be a 2020, like they should show it in schools and I don't know, college and films, like every film festival should show that. Just it just encompassed like what 2020 was and how people are and how like it's hard to be by yourself, and it's hard to like you're living via Zoom meetings and all this chaotic stuff is happening, and the pandemic was horrible, still happening, I guess.
Yeah,
But
weird.
it was just such a life altering movie. Like it was almost like somebody just wrote you a book or something of questions and you just gave everybody answers.
Well, yes, the Department of Interior has now solidified it as an archive of the American experience. Well,
Basically.
it must take, it's not for everybody. Pretty split down the middle. But I consider you a friend since you understand it. You must be a very interesting person yourself.
A lot of things going on, a lot of things that happen in life, but it was actually kind of like the dating scene and like the scene behind you with your drums. Like I never got to play drums, like, but that's okay. I mean,
Would that be your choice instrument?
I I love music and I've always loved music, and music has just sort of been a part of my life. And I don't know, I just never got to really play instruments. I played like guitar and stuff like that, but I don't know.
Well, I'm just breaking mine by jumping
Play
on.
drums? Do you
Yeah,
actually play drums? Very cool.
yeah. Um, so yeah, at the time I was writing, I was editing a short that I just got into the can. March, within a week or two of the quarantine happening here in Los Angeles. So I was sitting a lot. And I just, uh, I would never want to be on camera. I prefer not to be. But if I'm alone and I just have all of these funny ideas and images and feelings in my head, as you mentioned, being alone, I first started with a 58-second video intended to make friends laugh and just shot it in 4:3 to put it on Instagram. And it wasn't a little embarrassing, but it was just they were talking about, you know, Trump shooting up the thing, and so I just like, and making fun of myself, like throwing in the Jewish imagery and wanting to find a way to be vulnerable, to get closer to my truth, because that short film I got in the can, I like it a lot, but I think I could have gone even farther with it, with, since it was based on a true experience, I could have taken it a little farther. So what these shorts were was an exercise of just being completely free and not putting pressure on myself to make something, you know, need to be completely linear and make sense. It was first, like, it first started where I wanted to make something. I first called it opening night talk show entrance, because I was watching, I was on a Chris Farley rabbit hole on YouTube, and there's an iconic entrance to Letterman, I believe, or Conan, but I think Letterman, when he's doing like cartwheels, it's like this whole grand entrance. I'm like, I want to kind of play with that. I have this smoke machine, you know, I got this deck. I'm like, I could do something funny with this. And then I just wrote down on a Word document all these different things, and somehow it all came very naturally by not putting pressure on myself. And I released the first one, and people actually found it funny. Like, even my parents found it funny and didn't think I was out of my mind. And
Are those your parents that are in that when you're talking to and you're on kind of, I guess,
yeah,
FaceTime?
yeah, in part 3, Everything Go Round, I have 45 minutes of a 2-camera conversation of convincing my parents that I have COVID for 45 minutes. And I whittled it down to 10 seconds. The guilt I felt after that call. But then I thought, like, yeah, like, pretty good childhood. You guys treated me good. You know, there's some things, but, you know, I could punish you a bit. I could torture you a bit. And I thought it would, I had this image of being sick with COVID, and you know, my parents were so worried about it and that the kids were far away. So I just wanted to, you know, play with that, take advantage of that. So yeah, those are my parents, and I am thankful that they let me, especially my dad, keep their faces on there. So yeah, it's all true. My dad actually did block me, and here is his son with COVID calling, trying to reach him because he's about to die and go to the hospital. But you blocked me, so I had to add that in there because that's funny. But yeah, so I made the first one, then I made the second one where I basically one-upped myself, and that, all those vignettes just came in one sitting. I've never really had that happen before. So, and when I was shooting, when you're a director, you're the craziest person on set. everyone's looking to you. It's on your shoulders, and especially when you're self-financing it, you're managing, like on my crews are small, like 10 to 20 people, $12,000 to $30,000 for my shorts, but you're the craziest person. But if I'm shooting alone, it was so chill. I was just like listening to podcasts, setting up. There was a lot of cleaning up, a lot of setting up and tearing down. But I was just very zen and mellow about it, and laughing and trying a bunch of things, and improvising, and sometimes getting very obsessed with the amount of takes that I'm doing. And then also, like, it made me understand how to direct actors better. It made me understand how just being more free flowing is better to create something that's kind of alive. And I'm going to apply it to my narrative filming once I get to that.
The
Stop
scenes,
fighting me.
the scenes where is that you as a kid, and then you're kind of like reenacting what you're doing?
Yeah, that's
How, what was that like?
that that was from a short film I made in grade 10 or 11 called Magic Moments. And it was like a I was heavily into Twilight Zone at that time, and still I am. It's so inspirational. Stop. And sorry, my dog's like eating my cords. And chill. And that short film was about a computer. My computer is showing me images of something, and it's very disturbing to me. I'm a reclusive guy, and it ends up showing me that I killed my wife, and she's in my closet. It's a 25-minute short film, and there's a scene when it shows me something and I puke. So that's where I did the intercutting with the puke sequence. And then in the third one, when I'm smashing the computer, I eventually, in the short film that I made as a kid, I smashed the computer in my parents' basement, and they were so pissed off, just like all the noise and the screaming and stuff when I was shooting that. But then it's like I found a way how to tie that into the narrative of Everything Go Round when I take a DNA test and it's confirmed that the boy is in fact my son. So in disbelief, I smash the computer. But what happens in Magic Moments is I smash the computer, but the computer is still talking to me, and eventually leads me to the closet where my wife is in. My wife when I'm like 13 years old. Isn't it funny even in your 20s, in like college films and stuff, everyone looks like a kid and they're playing much older, and they're all have addiction issues, or every hot button topic is covered, but they're kids doing it, and that's always funny to me.
The scene in the car too was great, where the kid is sitting in the car and he has the mask on, and I guess you couldn't find your mask, so you just
yeah. Well, that's official Jurassic Park merchandise from 1993. That Dolores mask that I'm very proud to own, and must exploit it in every short film, or at least in the Quarantine trilogy. So yeah, you got that, and then that you never leave your dog in the car, you never leave your children in the car, and I don't know, I thought that was amusing, so I shot it.
Did you was this kind of a cathartic thing for you, do you think?
Oh God, yeah. Because we all have our shit going on, even outside of it being quarantine at that time, or if it is still quarantine, who the heck knows where we are right now. But the anxiety and the loneliness and the uncertainty And this was a way to play and have fun. And so it was extremely cathartic, because especially the third one, because depending how you read into it, the third one is the subtitle should be called "Everything Go Round, Daddy Issues," because when you have all this time in isolation, you look inward and of your behaviors, and whether these are behaviors carrying on from your family or manifesting from other places. It was that whole thing in quarantine where I'm going to change. I'm going to look at myself. I'm going to try new things. So it was just an examination of, having a temper, blaming people, and if you're going to carry that to your child or not. So I don't want to hit it too on the nose, but it's there. Like when you look in the mirror and you see a reflection of someone else, and you want to try to change the way you behave. So in this circumstance, he redeems himself by giving, exchanging himself so the kid could become real. It's just that random Pinocchio ending.
I love that you called it the new not normal, because that was driving me nuts for the longest time, hearing people walk around and go, oh, this is the new normal. And it just didn't feel like nothing is normal and okay ever, but that just didn't feel like the new normal. That was insane. And I love that you called it the new not normal, because it's not normal. I mean, we're walking around, we got to get our face mask on, or don't touch anything, sanitize everything, and it's just insane. It was insane. And I think you covered like everything in this film.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I've heard people say, um, oh, joking about quarantine isn't funny anymore, or no one wants to see people in masks in movies. Those will bomb. It's almost turned into "don't kill a dog" in a movie. It's just poison and will turn people off. But I don't know how. I don't know. I also don't care. This is the first time I'm thinking about it, like how this will age. But it was purely just an expression with no actual ambition. Someone told me to submit the second one, New Not Normal, to a film festival. I didn't think, I'm like, I don't know, this is just my poo poo movie. But, like, it's just, I called it my dumb videos. But, yeah, I, it'll be interesting to see how we look back at this time, because it doesn't seem like we're completely out of it.
Was the poop and the throw up, was that oatmeal? Because it takes a lot to gross me out, because I did nursing and everything, and that was like the one thing I was like a little bit. But what was it like, kind of, I guess, getting yourself ready and preparing all this stuff? And
Yeah. Oh, you did what kind of nursing?
CNA, certified, just a nurse assistant, but I worked in like a couple nursing homes, and it wasn't for me, because it was not, I thought I was going to be able to be helping people, and apparently that's not what was going to happen. So, but
Yeah. Well, yeah, the prep, there was a lot of it was front loaded with a lot of prep, and that had to do with props and writing down lists of what I need, especially the third one. There was a lot, mannequins to buy, and yeah, it's funny. It's like you go grocery shopping. You're like, okay, I'm gonna buy crap today. What do I need? I need curry powder. I need molasses. Um, for the puke, you're right. Oatmeal, Kool-Aid, red fruit, food coloring. Um, yeah, that poop tasted like curry. I used curry powder. What curry powder, baking powder, molasses, and just made it, and it looked good. It looked like the real deal. You know, when I was doing it, I had you're I'm so removed from it that it seemed normal. It didn't seem like, I was doing Trauma or John Waters or, whoever does poop in their movie. Like, maybe I'm just fucking weird, but it just seemed, it didn't phase me any of it. The hardest thing, and I made it hard, was and you probably wouldn't even remember it, is in the second one after the plane crash incident. I'm almost enter this low point where I'm in the dark, and I'm dreaming of my dog that went to my ex-girlfriend that I lost after 5 years, and I'm crying. That was an hour-long take of me trying to make myself cry in the shower, and like just the shit I was thinking about. It was, I put myself through a lot of torture for nothing, just for a second. But yeah, it was very laborious, but that's what I wanted. I wanted to move shit around and be on my, directing's the most fun part. Writing is the least fun for me. But directing, I'm on my feet, I'm doing things, I'm building things. You know what was the worst? The fucking dummy heads. So I got the dummy heads. And Robert Bravo, who is a super talented practical effects guy, he did two of my other shorts. He fabricated these dummy heads. The problem is, now the dog wants them. The problem is,
they look like they fell apart in the cage scene. Like I was watching the bloopers. They looked like they were falling apart.
Now I feel bad for Joe Dante on Gremlins and all the puppeteers under the raised stage, or Team America World Police. Like, don't work with puppets, don't work with mannequins, because these heads wouldn't stay upright. I was using fishing wire to keep them up. I was mounting them and things. I was taping them. I once called the special effects guy. I'm like in the middle of the night, I'm like, ah, these heads, they're not bouncing. He's like, oh, I should have made it out of this and this. I'm like, no, you tell me. I had one person to complain to, and that was him. Because otherwise, like, I was up the Nung River. I was seeing Colonel Kurtz. I was in some other land making this thing. But yeah, the dummies were the most annoying. If I had to do it again, they would be built better to balance upright on the bodies. They were too heavy for the bodies, so the neck always kept snapping off. So
the mannequin seemed a little problematic.
Yeah.
Like they were giving you trouble.
Cancel the mannequin. Yeah.
What was it like when you actually heard that you got in Panic Fest and the other festivals? And will you be doing other festivals this year also?
Yeah, crossing fingers. Yeah, Panic Fest was great. I heard amazing things about the festival, and it was the first time that I showed the stop biting me. The actually doing little baby bites, but uh yeah, it was the first time I showed the supercut. So it's cool. The way you saw it
Mhm.
was as one piece, which was special to that festival. So instead of in three parts, I still don't know what plays better as individual, or 8 minutes might be very overwhelming.
I actually liked seeing the whole thing, but then I did watch it how you sent it over. I watched it that way and it was just as amazing. But a special level of different. But I thought it worked both ways, but I was really glad that I got to see the supercut.
Yeah, I had a programmer tell me the supercut doesn't work. I won't tell you what festival, uh, but that's okay. So I'm
Mhm.
submitting the third one to festivals. It was online for a second, and then I took it off and told festivals it was never online. Probably shouldn't say that, but all right. I mean, hey, if you like it and it works for your program it. Like, especially at this time, the day in whatever release of things theatrically, or you can get it on demand. Or festivals, I get it. Exclusivity, premieres, that's important, but also like what works for your audiences and for the program itself, the festival. But yeah, it just got into the third one, Motel X in Lisbon, Portugal, which is a sweet festival. I've never been, but I always check out their program each year because, I've been rejected by them a bunch for other shorts. I always wanted to get into it. So it was cool how it's in the experimental category. And I've friends who have films in that category too. So I'm happy it will be playing internationally, and crossing fingers, I hope it gets into a few other festivals. And yeah, the second one, New Not Normal, was at Nightmares in 2020, and it won Best Shut-in Short for 1 year. They had a quarantine short category, and even though it was online, they played it. And then there was something called the Isolation Film Festival this year, where it was first about people who made films pretty much alone in isolation, but then they opened it up for people who follow COVID protocol with their films. So then, like, the submissions, I guess, got more expansive in terms of the quality of the work, since they allowed actual legitimate shorts. But yeah, it won best editing there, which I'm proud of, because I don't know, one of my favorite things about this short film is the slicey editing.
Is it challenging when you kind of have to do everything? Because I think the more you know, the better off you are, but I'd imagine it's a lot of work directing, writing, editing, producing, doing everything yourself. Or
Well, when you love something and you have aspirations that one day, like, if you get one person who really likes it and they can help support you, hopefully in like a producerial sense, then that makes you kind of forget about the whole labor and time of and effort if you truly love doing it. But in the case of writing, directing, editing, that's the full picture, at least for me. There's I want to be the author of it, and when I edit, I vet like crazy, like whether it's my script or my shorts. I want feedback. Like, you need objectivity. I didn't do it for the quarantine shorts That was the only time. I didn't send to anyone. I just dropped it. No feedback, because I didn't want to doubt myself, since this so purely came from me. And like character arcs and stuff didn't entirely matter. It was following its own rules. Uh, but yeah, like, is the cliche. There's 3 times you could fuck up a movie, or make it work, and the writing and the writing, the shooting, and the editing. And I want to edit my own films, and that's the way it's going to be. Do I want to produce all of them and like make all the calls from the ground up, starting with like craft services and everything? I would like some help if someone wants to join the train, but it's going to be moving and chugging along the track no matter what. So jump on. Like, we could use your help. And yeah, so, then I could focus on, you know, directing. But that's the way it is right now, like self-financing the things, busting your ass to pay for it. And but yeah, there's no other way.
What do you want to say to everybody that has watched this movie or that will be watching this movie? What do you kind of want them to know from your perspective?
I've only been institutionalized once. Uh,
Once?
no, I don't know. Let me think about that. That's a great question. Because, you want the work to, it's like, you want to be in mysterious, like David Lynch, he's not going to explain his movies. But then you have directors who will completely break it down and tell you all about the thematics and stuff. I want to know what you glean from it, what you feel from it, because my face doesn't lie. And hopefully there's something, like some sort of emotional thing that you could see and take from it, even though it's might not be what I intended. I just, like, you watch this, I want to know what, like, you felt, and why you responded to it. Like, I just want you to take from it whatever you experience. I don't know. Wait, this is a new take. I don't know. I want you to watch it and take your experiences and project them on here and see, like, if any of your frustrations came out, any of your anxieties. And I want you to have a cathartic release.
I thought it was very cathartic. I thought it was helpful, and not only because I realized like there's probably trauma and craziness and insanity, but it was hilarious, and that's what I took from it. And maybe I have, a warped sense of humor, and I laugh at stuff that I shouldn't laugh at. I laugh in uncomfortable times, but this was so honest and pure, and just I wanted to watch, like I could literally sit right now and just watch it. And that's how I feel. I think it's funny, it's smart. You took something so horrible, and instead of like, you know, not downing anybody or anything, but you made this insane, brilliant, like psychological, therapeutic movie that just, I don't think I'll ever forget this movie. Like, it'll be a movie that I'll just be, oh, I'm gonna just watch this because I'm having a bad day, or oh, I'm gonna watch this because I want to laugh.
Oh my God, thank
And
you.
it's relatable because a lot of us, like, we're trying to do stuff and it's like, well, okay, like what do we do now? And you made it it's insane, but it's amazing. That's like the only thing. And I thought for a minute, like, is this a Mr. Bungle video? Like, what am I watching? But I loved it.
Yeah, you can maybe like tell I wasn't thinking about these things, but this is just kind of what's in my DNA. Like I grew up
Mhm.
with Pee-wee's Big Adventure. That was a seminal movie for me. Or UHF or kind of like goofy, irreverent comedies uh like that.
And the shotgun scene, it was like, I wanted to ask you so bad if that was like an Evil Dead reference, if that was like for Bruce Campbell and Ash, because that was one of my favorite scenes also. Like, because it was just the brink of insanity, but it was amazing.
Yeah, I mean I like a you know, I'm a fan of like the abrasive sound editing or hard hitting
Mhm.
slashy cuts. And I love that about, let's say, Army of Darkness or whatever, like those crash zooms and those hard cuts on sound.
Mhm.
So yeah, I was definitely um I don't know if I was thinking about it, but again, it was in there because I love that style. And also like I what I was really into classical music. Like I'm into classical music, not to
Mhm.
sound pretentious, but I was thinking of symphonies. I was, you know how like Brian Wilson calls Good Vibrations a pocket symphony, because there's all
Yeah.
these movements. There's high points, there's low points, and then it comes back around. I was thinking that way. And also, one of my biggest influences for this isn't even a movie, and it's how Animal Collective, the band, plays their live shows. They're abrasive. You don't know where they're going. They never drop the music. They never stop. It always keeps going. It evolves in such interesting ways. You never hear the same version of the song twice when they're playing it live. You can deep dive into their live discography. So I was thinking a lot musically, making this, and that may show in the choices, like the Carl Orff in the third one.
I'm definitely gonna have to check that out because for me it was like it was almost like Mr. Bungle and the Dillinger Escape Plan because they never play the same thing. It's loud and sometimes they play like Retro Vertigo by Mr. Bungle is just an absolute perfect, beautiful song. But then there's like Anarchy and Chaos and Dillinger Escape Plan is the same way. It's like it's insanity, but it's beautiful.
Yeah,
For me,
there's control in it.
mhm.
A certain like you're unhinged, but there is it is thought out and mapped out and controlled.
Did you listen to a lot of music while you were making this?
Yeah, um, a lot of Carl Orff street song album, all classical music, a lot of live Animal Collective. Yeah,
What are you working on next? What's next for you?
I've been going mad writing a feature since February when I outputted Everything Go Around. Trying to find a way. How do I, like, since this felt so pure and organic, this process of making this, and I had fun, I wanted to find a way to have fun and get that energy out. Like, how do I capture that again when my ambitions are feature narrative films and, one I could do on my own if all else fails, where it has that wacky, irreverent energy, but also like the honesty and strong emotional truths that may look ugly, that are ugly and may not be appropriate, but they're human. And yeah, like then started looking at like I was always a fan of Cassavetes, but then I started like looking at French New Wave cinema, Italian New Wave, and just how those are so the emotions are big. It's like big melodrama, and but it's also philosophical on life and also very humanist. And just they feel so alive and they feel contemporary today. And how do I take so like I'm exploring the horror of self-awareness. I'm like the quarantine movies, the first time merging therapy, what I need to work on within myself with art, because you get off the phone with the therapist and you feel good, but you need to like sit down and like think about it. How am I gonna like improve myself? How am I gonna make this change? Well, I'm also so fucking like hard on myself and need to output, like make something, create. It's just in my DNA. I don't know where it comes from, and prove to myself that I could make a feature. So merging the two together, that I'm resolving personal issues through my work. And that's not any new thing. But it makes your work way more singular. And what I'm resolving in this is the horror of self-awareness as it relates to someone who is extremely hard on themselves, but who, was in a codependent relationship and, with someone who was an addict. And I'm taking that and like making it funny. And it is set during quarantine because, hey, why not pair these people together and put them through hell, put them through a little morality play, hell ride, and test them and see if they do change, test them and see if they do look in the mirror and realize that they're their own worst enemy. They're getting in the way of themselves. And there maybe in indie films I haven't seen like in a while, like too many not heroes or anti-heroes, but like and not totally despicable characters, but flawed characters that we can laugh at because we see part of ourselves in them and the mistakes we make, and who are making the wrong decisions. So that's like a vague way of sort of explaining what the tone is, but whatever I did in these quarantine shorts was an absolute mistake. Like if you asked me a year before that, would I be shooting myself with shit in my mouth? I'd be like, what? But like, why not scare myself and try something new?
Life is crazy and chaotic and hectic, and I'm a person that's like really hard on myself, and especially like with writing, I'll write and I don't like any of it ever. And then I'll, rewrite, don't like that. And it's like a process. And I felt that way watching New Not Normal. I felt sort of like it was very relatable. Like, even though it seems kind of, I don't want to say crazy because it's not crazy, but there's just a level of how people look at themselves and how it's so hard to be alone sometimes, but then you can be okay being alone. And even with dating, like, you're like, how was I supposed to do that? Like, put the mask on, like, what are we doing? It was just very relatable, and a human being, seeing human beings and not like ghosts or, I believe in a lot of different stuff, but I just felt very, it was something so refreshing and new and just relatable human wise, if that makes any sense.
Well, yeah. Um, Thank you. I guess it's just trying to be as honest as possible in the work, and even under the guise of goofiness, and don't try so hard.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, thanks. I know, like, you're a cinephile and you're in the horror world. So yeah, that means a lot, and just like especially that you related to it. Um, yeah, because you gotta do something with all those different pressures and the people in your life and their issues. Like, even if it is a transgression or a regression, like, it if the context seems honest to you, then why not?
Well, I've taken up so much of your time and I thank you so, so much. Any last like words of wisdom or
Words of wisdom, Lloyd. Words of wisdom. Um, no, I don't know. I thank you for finding this film and saying good things about it, and I'm happy that I reached out to you to thank you after I read your review, and that I got to meet you and like talk to someone who who gets it, not the short itself, but isn't afraid to acknowledge what they're going through.
well, it meant a lot to me and I was very glad that I got to talk to you today. And I thank you so, so much, Ryan.
Hey, thank you. Happy to be here.